Welcome back, everybody, to episode 5 of the Bear Down Breakdown podcast. Now, I am Ronan Clark, your host. Unfortunately, Gustavo Arriaga could not make it today. Him and I have been working really hard. We both got jobs. We're both still in school. DePaul is still in session for another, say, 3 weeks, but we've been still working very hard. And, all of that hard work has culminated into boom. Ladies and gentlemen, we have won Content Creator of the Year award here at RDSE Radio DePaul Sports and Entertainment. Now, this award means so much. Like when we started the show, gosh, like a couple months ago, we never expected and all of the stuff, all of this to happen. We never expected all the guests that we had, all of the love that we've gotten. It's taken off so quickly. And, it's been such a humbling experience being able to interact with all of these massive voices and personalities and these people that are so deeply entrenched within the Bears community and the Bears, even who work for the Bears. It's been such a humbling experience to be able to have them on. And the amount of times that we've had to stick our necks out and reach out to people and s- working so long, like the amount of doors that we've had closed in our faces from people that we've reached out to and the amount of no's that we've gotten and like the amount of hours that we've worked on this. Like I remember would spend God, I spent 12 hours one day just editing for one whole video. Gustavo last night gets off at work at almost midnight and is up until 2 a.m. making the notes for this podcast. Like that is how committed we have been to this and how much we care. And, it makes it so worth it when we're able to get such amazing people like Greg Gabriel, like, Taylor Dahl is coming on today, and all these different guests that we've had on the show. It makes it so rewarding. And, genuinely, when we started this show, we didn't expect this to take off like it has. We didn't expect to get the love that we've gotten from you guys in the Bears community, from everybody who has, gosh, Windy City Sports Cards has been so great. I mean, I just want to go down the list here of everybody that we've had on and everybody that's been a supporter and just thank them because, it's been so amazing, all of the support that we have gotten. So, of course, first couple of guests, Nicholas Moriano, Swift Sports, grew up watching this guy since 2023. White Sox Dave, Harrison Graham, Zach Pearson, Jacob Infante, Riley Mastrantonio, Mr. Agent, Taylor Dahl, Herb Howard, Greg Gabriel, and Keek on the mic. These guys have been amazing and they've been so gracious with their time and with everything that they have given to our show. And we're so incredibly thankful for them. Like, none of this would have been possible without them and without you guys. And, this award, it isn't just some, made up award to us. It's not just something that's going to go on my shelf. This is the culmination of everything that we have done so far. And it's going to be the culmination of what we are going to do. And, I'm just so thankful for everybody who has shown us support, who has helped us out along this journey. Gosh, especially Swifty Sports. Like he has been such an amazing help to us, connecting us with people, shouting out our content, being one of the first followers that we had on the show. So to everybody who has made this possible, just a massive thank you. Like we genuinely never expected this show to take off. The amount of long hours that we've had to put into this and editing, and like we're not even paid. We're not yet, not yet. But we've put in so many hours to the show and just doing research and making sure every bit of information is accurate. We have good questions for our guests. Like it's so rewarding to get something like this where, it's the culmination of all the stuff that we've done. And, it may not be money and it may not be like a job, but it means so much to us. So just thank you to the guys at RDSE. Thank you to everybody who has watched our videos, liked our videos, followed us on X, Twitter, Instagram, anywhere. Just massive thank you to you guys. Without you, none of this would have been possible. But without further ado, let's get into the podcast. So, as many of you have seen, Seth Wickersham has been causing a big storm within the Caleb Williams camp. Now, it came out that Caleb had a very positive meeting pre-draft with the Vikings. Of course, that's how it's going to be. When you are going to be drafted, you're going to meet with other teams, but you're probably going to know which team you're going to go to, right? But what a lot of people seem to fall for is the fact that, and Seth Wickersham knows this, he knows this damn well when he put out this quote. that we are in the dead part of the offseason. There's no news, and people are hungry for Bears content. They are looking for anything. They are grasping at straws. And when he put out this quote and plugged his book, he knew that it would be incredibly beneficial to him to do so. And that is why I think he did it. This is a non-story. Caleb has already played an entire year with the Bears. And if he didn't want to come to the Bears, he would have just sat out. He would have said, trade me. If his father's opinion was that important, he wouldn't be here. And I really do think that, you know, we're just so hungry for content right now and so desperate to have anything to talk about. I mean, you look at the guys at 670, or you look at the guys at CHGO, any of these media brands, they are desperately grasping at any story. And I think David Kaplan put this best. It's a non-story. Caleb, as a leader, only needs to address this to whom it may concern. And that was something that I had also mentioned on Twitter, was that, if you are a leader and if you are leading a group of men and there's controversy surrounding you, you only need to address it to whom it may concern. You don't need to address it to these reporters who are going to blow it out of proportion. You don't need to address it to the fans who honestly, it really doesn't matter to. It only matters to the people within that locker room. And I guarantee you, he doesn't even need to address that. Caleb has proven himself that he wants to be a Bear. The claw, the Bears, the suit that he wore at the draft. If he didn't want to be a Bear, he wouldn't have done any of that. And I think that it's foolish, like we had said, foolish to think that Caleb does not want to be a Bear. I get that coming in and going to the Vikings, yes, it was a great meeting. You get the prospect of working with a guy like Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, a lot of great talents on the Vikings team. Kevin O'Connell is an amazing coach, but that's just not how it pans out. At the end of the day, it's not a choice. It's not oh, I get to sign wherever I want. It's a draft. It's like any sort of draft. If you're getting drafted in the military, it's not a choice where you go. It's not a choice if you get to go. You are drafted. You are selected. You are not choosing. Once he gets to free agency, maybe then, yeah, but it is a draft. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. Caleb has already played an entire season with the Bears. He has shown that he wants to be a Bear long term, and he has put in long-term steps to be here. And now with the addition of Ben Johnson, I am almost 100% confident that this story means nothing. Now, also David Kaplan had mentioned, let's say when this book comes out, there's more stuff about Caleb. Who cares? Who cares? If Caleb wanted to go to the XFL, that's in the past. Caleb is an NFL player for our Chicago Bears, and that is all that matters. And I think that, frankly, it's just ridiculous to think that this story means anything. This is just a media guy who knows how to ride the wave of boredom in the offseason and a fan base that is so hungry for content, for anything, that they will take whatever and run with it. And that was a story that he likely sat on because he knew about it pre-draft. If he wanted to publish it pre-draft and cause an even bigger storm, he could have, but he chose now. That is, I think it's just one of those stories where it's a journalist being opportunistic about the timing, about everything that's going on with the Bears, the new coaching staff. It's a little bit ridiculous. But now, without further ado, we have our first guest, the Honorable Mr. Greg Gabriel. This is going to be fun. Mr. Gabriel, happy Friday. Let's see. All right. How are you doing, Mr. Gabriel?
I'm good. How about you?
Oh, I'm doing great. We are so honored to have you on here. Is your video working by chance?
Uh, it should be. Wait a minute. Let me get into this. Let me see here. Click that. Now it should be.
Well, it was working for a little bit.
It's not working. Wait a minute. Well, I keep clicking it, and then it doesn't.
It's got a little.
Yeah, I know. There's a thing on. Let me. Integrated camera. Wait a minute. Let me try this.
Yeah, there should be a setting within the videos. There we go. Oh, so close. Hey, there we go.
Okay. No,
Hey.
it was my camera was covered up a little bit with the.
I got you.
Which happens sometimes when I shut my computer.
Oh, you got the shaker bottle too. Hey, how about that?
I got to drink water.
Hey, I got a water bottle here too. How about that? Well,
if
Mr. Gabriel.
If I don't, my mouth gets too dry.
Yeah, I feel that. Well, Mr. Gabriel, it is such an honor to have you on here. I just have to give a personal story. 7 years ago, I was introduced to the Chicago Bears media because of you on Radio 670 Sports. I was listening with my dad in the car on the way to church, and one of the first radio segments that I heard was you on 670. And, that just got me into sports and everything. And, like, we recently
Why?
got
What did
this
I say?
award.
It scared you off.
Oh my gosh, no, like it, I just remember like the way that you communicated about the Bears and everything that was going on. Like, it got me so interested in it. And, 670 and all these different media outlets, like, and hearing your voice, it just, it kind of clicked something in my brain. And then now here we are 7 years later, and I get to talk to you. It's such an honor. And, but without further ado, would you like to introduce yourself to our audience?
Why, you on live now?
We are live, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm Greg Gabriel.
Greg Gabriel. Well, for anybody who doesn't know, this is Greg Gabriel. He has been an NFL scout and for who? Bears, Giants, and the XFL, right?
Bears, Giants, Eagles, Bills.
Whew.
Started off with the Bills in 1981. Then I was with National Scouting for just the fall of 84. And then the Giants hired me at the fall meetings in December of 84. And then I was with them until I came here in 01 with Jerry Angelo. Then I was with the Eagles for a little while as a consultant, and then the XFL.
Wow. That's quite the resume. I'm a little jealous. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, just like, how is that? Is it long hours or, like, do you just love doing that? Because I mean, like, I can watch tape and I can do all that, but at some point you get a little bit burned out with anything. But that's
Well, I mean, I'm going to be honest. It cost me my first marriage because you're gone so much. But that was over 30 years ago. So
yeah.
um, it's what scouts do now, what they did when I started, are entirely different things, and mainly it's the world of technology. You know, uh, the only way you got film, and back then it was film, it wasn't tape. We used
Mhm.
to carry. I got the projector down in the basement. We used to carry a Kodak 16 millimeter projector with us wherever we went. And you watch film and you had to learn how to splice the film because the film always broke. And you'd watch it at the school. So you're on the road a lot. I had like 5 or 6 years in a row where I was on the road better than 200 nights. And,
Yeah.
so, and this is all that was during the 80s. But then we got into videotape and now it's digitized. And now, where we used to have to wait weeks to get film in the office or to get video in the office from the colleges sometimes. Now you have college games. I have it because I have access to tape now because I do work for the East West game. And I have 90% of Saturday's games Sunday morning
Yeah, because
and
like you get
100% by
huddle.
Sunday night.
Yeah, I remember we used to use Huddle a lot, and it would just be instant. Like they would have tape out for us, gosh, within like 15 minutes.
No,
Oh,
I can watch games Sunday morning that were played the day before, and that's just how quick it is now. You don't scouts don't have to make the school calls like they used to when I started out. We used to have to get there early. You had to get there early because you wanted to be the guy controlling the clicker when we were first started with videotape and stuff because they put all the scouts in one or two rooms. So the guy who controlled the clicker, or in other words, the back and forth of the tape,
yeah,
he had control of the room. So if you wanted to control, you had to get there at 6 a.m. at the school, and then you'd be there all day. You'd watch practice, then you're driving to wherever you got to go to next. So and get reports done too. So I mean, it was a long day. Not complaining about it because it was a lot of fun, but the workload was different. Now you want to do your tape work, you could do it in your hotel. Wherever you got internet access, you got access to your tape.
Man, that's awesome. Well, on that topic, actually, Gustavo had a question for you. Unfortunately, my co-host cannot be here. Him and I, he's been working until midnight and he was up until 3 a.m. doing these notes and questions for you. So I got to give a big shout out to him. He has been working his butt off for this, but he pitched the question of, do you have any favorite or notable experiences you had with the Bears between different coaching staffs or players?
No, because I didn't work for the coaches. I worked for Jerry Angelo, worked
Mhm.
with the coaches. Okay, and but there was we were much more involved with Lovey's staff than we were with Dick's staff. Okay, and I think that was by plan from Jerry, and because we came in June of '01 and we weren't going to be able to make any changes. We made a couple changes with the scouting staff. I hired two guys within 3 weeks of getting here. So I hired them at the end of June, first week of July, something like that. And then and one of those guys was Chris Ballard, who's now the GM
No
of
way.
the Colts. Yeah, Chris was the
Seriously.
first guy I hired. So
Wow.
um, it's so we were here a couple months before we go up to camp, and camp was up in Platteville, Wisconsin. Then that was the last year we were in Platteville. So before we even met the coaching staff, because they were when we got here in the middle of June, they were all gone for the summer. So we didn't even meet them until we got to Platteville for training camp.
So would you guys usually come in like at the start of the off season or like even before then? Like once their season is done, then you guys' work starts.
Well, I mean, the college work is year round. As soon
Mhm.
as the draft's over, the guys are starting work on next year. Like I'm 6 months ahead. I work now for besides doing the East West, I work for agents. So and they need evaluations just like teams do. So I've been doing evaluations for next year since January. Okay, and I can tell you the exact number.
Well, let's
If
see.
I click into another screen, you won't lose me, right?
No, no, no.
Okay, I'm just going to click into this
Yeah,
for a
let's see.
second. Uh, I've done 243 players so far
Out of
for
how many?
next year. Well, as many as they give me.
Hmm.
I do the guys that they ask me to do.
Oh, so
I
they
don't do
specifically
guys.
request.
I don't do guys that they don't ask me to do until after the first of the year for the draft. That and I play. So if there's like 30 good players that maybe I didn't do for an agent, then I'll do them for myself after the first of the year before the draft.
That's really interesting. So work is never over for you guys. It's just always on it.
Yeah, but to get back to your original question, yeah, we were just, we, I had a couple good friends, and one is still a good friend, Greg Blosh, who was the defensive coordinator. He's retired now, lives up in Wisconsin. On that staff, who else? Greg Olson, who is I think he's the offensive coordinator with the Raiders, the new offensive coordinator. A couple of those guys I was pretty close to, but most of the staff, not anywhere near as close as we were with Lovey's staff because we brought Lovey's staff in. We were involved in hiring those guys. So
You guys acted as like hiring managers almost too.
no, I mean Lovey hired who he wanted to. We were involved with the interview process as far as you know there's video interviews that the league gives the teams that they do of guys that they think are coaching candidates. So we started doing those during the season, during the 2003 season. We were doing those, knowing that we were going to make a change at the end of the season. So we're just trying to put together a list of names that, could be, worthy candidates. Now, Jerry did the bulk of the interviewing. We were involved some, but it's that's for the head coach. That's for Lovey. But with the other guys, I mean, it was Lovey's hire, but a lot of them were brought into the building. We all talked to them, and then we changed our system a little bit, our scouting system. We had our coach or our scouts work very closely with the coaching staff. So each scout had a position. We'll call it a cross-check position. So he had to work really closely with the position coach. As far as putting together a profile of what we were looking for. So if we had literally a physical description of what we were looking for a defensive end, a defensive, a nose tackle, a 3 technique, a Mike linebacker, a Will linebacker, what we wanted at corner, what we want. You had it for every position on the team. And so then when the scouts go out in the fall, that's predominantly what they're looking for, guys who match that profile that was written up.
So there's always a specific profile. It's never like multiple different profiles. It's just one.
No, I mean, we knew we had, we were with Lovey for a long time. We knew exactly what we were looking for. We weren't going to bring in a 6'3", 350-pound nose tackle. He couldn't play in our defense. Wasn't a fit. So we'd eliminate those guys. You'd give them a grade. You'd give them the grade they deserved, with grade within the league. But they would never see our draft board. They were off to the side because it's not a guy we would draft. You're only going to draft guys that are fits for your system.
So it's never like a BPA, even if it's a guy that you haven't like really scouted too much.
Well, BPA of the guys you want.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what? I'll throw the question at you.
Sure.
If I got a big fat nose tag, okay, I'll use guys we had. We had Keith Traylor, and we had Ted Washington. Okay, those guys were here in 2003. We got rid of them in between 03 and 04. Why did we get rid of them? They couldn't play in Lovey's scheme. They didn't fit the profile. They weren't athletic enough. They weren't penetrators. They were more two-gappers that could take on blocks and hold the line of scrimmage, but they couldn't do what a nose was asked to do in that scheme. So they're good players. Ted Washington went to multiple Pro Bowls, but he wasn't going to play in that scheme. So why would you even think about drafting him? Slow linebackers who couldn't cover. We weren't going to take them.
Yeah. That reminds me a lot because I was a bit of a slow linebacker. I played Sam, and we had a system where we would occasionally blitz, but it would mostly be like I would have to cover the flat side. So I was strong side Sam, and we'd occasionally cover the flat, or they would just send us in the zone. But occasionally we'd had a blitz. It was called Sosa, where they called it Hollywooding, where I'd start off on I think the 2 receiver. I'd come over around to like I think the tight end, and then you blitz off of there. But it would always be at like the pre-snap count. So they never had us they never really had the Sam blitzing too much. And then when I came in, they wanted me to be Will, but I was way too undersized. It was crazy. But yeah, I played at Loyola Academy with Olin Kreutz's kids. You probably know them.
I don't really know his kids. They're both pretty good players at Illinois.
Yeah.
The older one will probably get drafted next year. The younger one, the younger one may have 2 more years left because they redshirted him.
Oh my God, I have to tell you a story about James. I remember this so vividly. So I was standing on the sideline, and I think we were playing Carmel, and we were down. It was like we were down by a score. Oh my gosh. And so they go to throw the ball over the middle. He jumps up so high. His feet are all the way over the offensive line, picks it off. I've never seen a more athletic play in my life. He jumped so high. Like, oh my gosh, he was a ridiculous athlete and nasty. Like, those guys take after their dad. They are
You're
nasty,
talking
physical
Carmel
players.
Line?
No, Mount Carmel.
Oh, my, okay. Because
Yeah.
Olin coaches at Carmel Mundelein.
Yeah, I know. We played Carmel, and then the bigger teams that we played, it was Carmel, it was Rita, and then it was Brother Ice. Brother Ice always gave us some trouble. But back to football, we got some Bears questions here for you. So, NFL scout Caleb Williams, he has publicly reaffirmed his commitment to the Bears following the recent controversies. Now, I was going over this
Okay, wait a minute.
earlier. Yeah,
Let's back up on that.
sure.
The whole story. Can I
It's
say
foolish.
bullshit?
Oh
Because I
yeah, go
just
ahead. It's
okay.
so
The
dumb.
whole
It's
story is
so
bullshit.
dumb.
The whole story
Yeah.
is totally. First of all, it's old news.
Hmm.
Everybody in the league knew about that 14, 15, 16 months ago. I, on my podcast, talked about it February and March a year ago. That the dad, I even talked about the agent that the dad hired. He's an agent slash lawyer, lives in the Baltimore area. He hired him and basically looked into the idea of, can we somehow circumvent the process? There's nothing wrong with that. They're trying to find out what they can do and what they can't do. And that's exactly what they were doing. And everybody knew about it. It was talked about. So now Wickersham comes out with a book, and it's like, oh, really? Did this happen? Well, no shit. Of course it did. It happened a long time ago.
Yeah,
But they're
I was
trying to,
saying it's just
what the media
opportunistic
does
media.
is try to turn things around and turn it into a negative when it was an old story. If I'm Caleb and I'm on the Bears, I tell Caleb, tell the media to stick it. It's a non-story. He didn't have to spend 20 minutes talking about it the other day. Not in my
Yeah,
opinion.
I was saying too, I was like, as a leader in a locker room, you only have to discuss these things to whom it may concern. And that's only the people in the locker room. And I had a big debate with some guy on Twitter about this. I'm like, if you are having a controversy as a leader of a team, you only have to address it to whom it may concern. And these media types are always going to be opportunistic. It's the dead part of the offseason. People are hungry for content. I was talking about this with Zach Pearson too. Like, people just want content. And guys at 670, like you see it on all these radio stations, especially now, it's such clickbait. And Seth Wickersham knows this. He knows damn well that by publishing that now, it's going to generate hype for his book. It's in the dead part of the
Yeah,
off season.
it's a
Yeah,
dead time. You got
yeah.
nothing really going on except OTAs, and which are boring as heck. And so you got to create something. The book's gonna, it's gonna do the same thing when the book
Mhm.
gets published sometime in the fall. And again, the whole, the book's going to be about a lot of things, not just that. But that whole story is an old story that they're trying to, redevelop. When, if they just think about it for a second, and these guys who are talking about it, trying to make something out of it, they knew this was out 14, 15 months ago.
Yeah, it's just like we knew about this. That's what it makes me so mad because we knew about this. We knew that Caleb he was having doubts about coming here. Of course he was. This is where quarterbacks go to die. And everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, like he's gonna go to the Vikings. He's gonna go." If he wants to go to the Vikings, once his contract is up, he could go to the Vikings for all I care. But it's just ridiculous. I'm glad you have the same opinion on that because like,
No,
but the only people that
I having worked in the media here and seeing, I've worked in New York, worked in Philly, worked here. Then, I'm from Buffalo and worked in Buffalo, and Buffalo is, a whole different ball game because the media is very pro team,
Mhm.
always is. And we're here, and New York, everybody says New York's a tough market. New York is very easy compared to here. Here they just thrive on negativity. Whatever's negative, we're going after. And it's more talk radio than the print. But because I'll go back to when I started, there was like one or two sports talk radio stations in the damn country, but one of them was in New York where I was working with the fan. But it still wasn't anywhere near what it's like now, just trying to push the negative. You have a narrative, and the narrative is always on the negative side of things. And I'm sorry, I can't agree with that because I'm basically a positive person. I'm going to deal with the positives, not with the negatives.
Yeah, it's like, why don't we see, hey, he went there and then he came here and he could have just pulled an Eli Manning and been like, trade me. Like, I'm not coming here. But he came here. We had a great pre-draft meeting with him. They always seem to leave out the part where right after he went and met with the Bears and had a great meeting, and then he was committed to the
Yeah,
Bears.
I mean,
It's
it's real
like,
simple. Where is he playing?
yeah,
Did he try? Did he look into it? Yes. Did he try to do anything about it? Nope. Because know what they found out? They couldn't. And they found that out in February of 2024, before the combine.
it's like it's nuts. Like, and you see all like CH Go, like all respect to the guys at CH Go, but they love that stuff with the Hawks, with the Cubs. Like the Cubs will be on a winning streak and they'll be like, PCA he's gonna take a nosedive. He sucks. Like it's like, at some point, the Chicago media has to be like, okay, we're doing good now. We have a great coaching staff. Ben Johnson, one of the most promising coaches that we've had in years. Like, why don't we focus on that? It's such opportunistic narrative placing where it's like, oh, we have nothing better to do. Let's talk crap about the Bears. It's ridiculous. I'm glad you share my opinion on that because like so many people are just like, he has to address it. He has to address it. No, he doesn't. He doesn't have to address it. And I mean, props
No,
to
I was,
him.
in fairness, I was disappointed that he did.
Yeah. And
And
that
I
one
remember,
question about his
on
dad.
Wednesday, there's like 4 or 5 different media guy goes, "What? Got to get to Cal's Hall. Caleb's going to talk." So what? If I was Caleb, I was going to say old news. We're not talking about it. Next question. And if somebody tried to bring it up, next question. But that's me,
Yeah.
because that's how you cut it off.
Yeah, it's just like he kind of feeds into it a little bit more. And then when that book comes out, like I was listening to ESPN and they were saying like when that book comes out, it's probably going to be more. It's probably going to be at a point where, okay, maybe things are going good, maybe things are not. Like he's a reporter, he knows what he's doing, and like he takes advantage of the fact that like the media and all the people on Twitter, like they love to be negative. Like you have all the depressed Bears fan accounts and all that different stuff,
It's
and they eat that
clickbait.
up. Oh,
It's and like today, some idiot puts out, rumor the Bears are trying to trade for Nick Bosa. Sure,
oh, I
they are.
saw that. I saw that. I saw that. That made me
Okay,
so mad.
first of all, it's not a rumor.
No,
That
it's
particular
not.
person made it up. Nick
Yes.
Bosa signed a new contract last September, 5-year deal. Okay, the cap hit. No team would, in their right mind, even attempt to trade a guy 9 months after they signed him to a deal. In this case, it's 8.5 months. But the cap hit that they would take is, and if it was after Sunday, it gets spread out, but the cap hit remains the same, $96 million, even though it's spread out. It's
That's
not
just
going to
impossible
happen.
money. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
impossible
I mean,
money.
what it does is bankrupt the team. So,
That's-
and then on top of that, the Bears don't have the money to afford that contract. But somebody's got some idiot who's got to put it out there because he wants clickbait and to start a rumor. There's probably a half a dozen, maybe a dozen people that got these fictitious names on X that just sit around making stuff up, and there's fans that actually believe them.
Do you know the breaking rumor? Breaking rumor. Oh my God. That stuff is that NFL notify. Like, well, what even is a breaking rumor? What is it? What does that mean?
Oh, that
It's not, it's
I block all those accounts because they're
God.
just they're made up. There's some kid sitting in mom's basement making shit up.
It's ridiculous. It's like, oh man. I'm glad you agree about that. I'm glad the professionals actually agree that like this, it's stupid. Because and then like you probably saw it was that one account that had like what, like 100 some followers. You're like, rumored the Bears are trying to trade for Nick Bosa. What? Like, why? The only realistic trade that I think we could make, and I don't even think it's gonna happen, is for Trey Hendrickson.
No,
Eh,
that's not
yeah,
realistic either.
yeah,
It's
like
not even close to being realistic. In fact, Bigsy, who's one of the few people that thinks with a brain in the media around here, um, is he even said they can't afford it. He's going to get a contract. He's already turned down a 3-year extension at 28 a year. Turned it, so that wasn't good enough. I get where the Bengals are. He's going to be 31 years old in December. So we've fit, the last month of the season, he'll be playing at 31. So I get where they don't want to do more than a 3-year deal, okay, with all that guaranteed money. But he being a player that's led the league in sacks, he's going to try to get, he and his agent are going to try to get the most they can because it's going to be his last contract. Okay, for all intents and purposes, this is his last deal. So you get all that. But it's going to be north of $30 million, somewhere, as it turned out, a year. And for a player who will be 31 in March or 31 in December, Poles isn't going to do that. That kills his cap. Don't forget, he's got young players that are coming up in the next year or so that he's got to pay. One is after next season. So next spring, if he so chooses, he can. No, I take that back. It's a year from next spring is Caleb. He can extend. But there's other players that he's drafted, guys like Darnell Wright and stuff, that he could start extending. And so that's who he's got to think about, not a 31-year-old defensive end who is not going to really earn, might have one good season, might have 2 good seasons, but now you're paying him. You're still paying him. And that's when you do a bad deal, it comes back to haunt you, especially when you got a young team like the Bears got. They brought in some veterans where they had to get veterans, and that was on the offensive line. They had to build up the offensive line. They paid those guys. Okay, now they're tapped out. They got $14 million, $14.5 million left in cap space. You need at least $5.5 to $6.5 million to run your team during the year. That practice squad comes out of that. Mm-hmm. Guys are getting a lot of money, that's millions and millions of dollars that they get.
It's usually like
that comes out of that right? $5.5 to $6.5 that you need. Guys are going to get hurt. They're going to have to go out and get somebody off the street, sign them. Comes out of that, $5.5 to $6.5 million. So you got to have that reserve. So really what you've got is $7 million. Now you could restructure Montez Sweat. You could restructure DJ Moore to create things. But when you do that, what you're doing is just prolonging the agony, because sooner or later, it's got to be, all that money's got to be accounted for. If it's not this year, it's next year, the year after. So you can put yourself in a situation like Poles inherited from Ryan Pace and be it and cap hell because of bad contracts.
Khalil Mack. Yeah.
So you got to make sure that you're doing it right. So I cannot see him going out and now if you could get Trey, if you could do what Cincinnati wants to do and do a 3-year deal, that's a different story. Because you'll probably get 3 good years out of it, but you still don't have the money. You're going to have to restructure some other contracts to be able to create the money to pay him.
Yeah, and probably have a lot of outs for it too, like especially in those later years.
Well, you still got it's the guaranteed money and it's the bonus. And once you pay the bonus has got to be covered sooner or later. It's going to hit the cap. If it doesn't hit the cap this year, it's going to hit it next year and the year after. Bonus money is all appropriated over the length of the contract. And if you get rid of the player, it accelerates into the year that you get rid of them, unless it's June 1st, then it gets flipped between the current year and the next year.
Now, one final question here on the topic of pass rushers. So we recently got Shamar Turner, Dayo Odeyingbo. How do you see these guys adding to our defense? Do you think that they solve our pass rushing problems, or is it more just like a plug into the leaking hole that eventually, when we get back to the dock, we'll patch it up?
Well, they gave O'Day a lot, or I think it's O'Day, how you pronounce it.
Odeyingbo.
They gave him a lot of money. They spent a 2nd round pick on Turner. Okay, now Odeyingbo can play inside and outside. He actually got last year, the majority of his sacks were from inside. A lot of times he plays outside on base downs and inside on pass downs. That's what he did at Indy. That doesn't mean he's going to do that here. But you're going to have, you got at least four guys, and you'll probably have five. But let's say the top four, just looking at contracts and looking at draft picks, you've got Gervon Dexter, Billings, Jarrett, and Shamar Turner. Okay, that's four guys who are going to play within the rotation. They'll probably all get, give or take, a few percent, 50% of the snaps. And then, you know, outside you got Sweat and you got O'Day. You got Booker, who's put on some weight. Booker's got a lot of talent.
Mm-hmm,
He needed to
mm-hmm.
get bigger and stronger. And then who's the fourth guy going to be? I don't know.
Not Tom Robinson. No,
No, no.
no.
But I mean, it could be Hardy. You know, how they do it is how they're going to do it. I don't know how that's going to turn out, but I mean, could they theoretically go out and get one more body? Yeah, but they're not going to go out and get somebody that is going to cost them a lot of money. Okay, that today, the deal won't be official until Monday because it's going to be a post June 1st deal. But the Eagles traded Huff
Yeah, I
to the
saw.
49ers. Okay, well, if the Bears needed a pass rusher, they could have tried to get into that. Did they? No, because you know, he first of all, he's making a lot of money, and second, you know, I think they want to see, they want to go into camp and see what they got with the players that they currently have.
Yeah. I mean, even a guy like Zadarius Smith, I think he cost like what, maybe 5, 6 million for
Oh,
1 year.
he
Like,
doesn't do anything anymore.
yeah, like his what? He was on Vikings last or Detroit.
I think he might have been on a couple teams last year.
Yeah. He's got to complete the
There's a couple
NFC
of those guys,
gauntlet.
but they're not, you know, they're not real fits for what they want here. Could, I mean, hey, you can never say never. I'm not totally up to date on what Dennis Allen wants. Like I knew the scheme Flus had because it's the same scheme we had
Yeah, Tampa.
with Lovey. So, but I don't know exactly. I'm still trying to learn about Dennis Allen's scheme, and I'm not going to know what I want to know, and probably until October when I see it more.
Well, Mr. Gabriel, this has been an absolute honor. Growing up listening to you, you were my introduction to sports media. So this means so much to me. So I'm so thankful to have had you on. And, our mutual friend, Swifty Sports, said, hey, Greg Gabriel is one of the best guys you could have on. And I was like, I got to get
Well,
him on. So
Swifty gave you a good plug to me. So, and
really,
he's a
no
great guy.
way.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Swifty. Oh, man, I can't say enough nice things about him. He has just been such an amazing help. Like, he was one of the first guys that followed us, like, and everything. But
No,
thank you so
he's a
much.
really good person. You know, he and I do a show together every other week. So it's, you know, be next Friday will be the next one.
Yeah, I'll tune in. Well, have a nice Friday, Mr. Gabriel. Best of luck with all the scouting, and thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me. Appreciate it. Good luck with everything.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Okay. See you later.
See ya. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, that has been Greg Gabriel, NFL scout. What an amazing experience. Like, what a smart, educated guy in the league to have on. Like, man, I wish Gustavo could have been here because that whole conversation about the Bears media, everything, it's so true. Like, the Bears media thrives on negativity. They thrive on that just negative concept of everything. Like, ever since the Bears have stunk, the Blackhawks have stunk, the Sox have stunk, it's been this just septic tank that we've had to swim through constantly. And I'm so glad that he mentioned that because frankly, Chicago media needs to kind of tune it up. Guys at 670, guys at ESPN, let's get the positivity going. Let's get a positive vibe going. So then maybe Caleb doesn't feel like, hey, I have so much pressure on me. I'm not going to be able to do anything. But ladies and gentlemen, that was Greg Gabriel, NFL scout. How about that? Like, dude, the pod is getting big. It's getting big. Man, I wish Gustavo could have been here. He would have loved this. But so thankful to Mr. Gabriel for having him on. Coming up next is going to be Taylor Dahl. But for now, let's just talk about some rumors. So we had mentioned the just silly narratives that were coming out. Let's see, what else? It's got to be a lot of fun news here. But the Bryce Huff trade, I was kind of getting into it with somebody here. I feel that that was a Robert Saleh trade. I think that, frankly, Bryce Huff is kind of in some of his worst years. He's not really getting as much production as he was. He was the most productive when he was with the Jets. And so, it's one of those things where you really have to kind of see the trade as like, okay, he's getting reunited with this guy. Maybe they have some faith in him, but for a fourth and the hit that they took, I don't like it. I don't like it. But see, what else do we have on the agenda here? And it's not easy to host a podcast alone. Mini camp, we are going to be going to training camp. We're gonna try to. Gonna be trying to film some videos there. Hopefully, we see our boy Cream Sleeve. If you know, you know. If you know about Cream Sleeve, that's our guy on Twitter. You gotta go follow him. He is a hoot. But Ozzy Trapillo is another guy whose name has been popping up a lot. He's been taking a lot of first team reps, and he's been shining. Now, with the Braxton Jones contract looming, his knee injury looming, and Karan Amagadi slowly creeping up. Now, he didn't have the best season last year, admittedly. He was honestly one of our worst left tackles, but a lot of people were giving him a lot of crap. But frankly, I think that Ozzy Trapillo has the best shot at the left tackle one spot. He has the measurables. He reminds me a lot of Mike McGlinchey, just how his size, his frame, everything about him. It reminds me of Mike McGlinchey when he came into the league. So I'm hoping we get a guy like Mike McGlinchey out of him. Hopefully, our offensive line coaches can kind of come together and really develop him into that left tackle that we need on Caleb's blind side. Because I really think that Trapillo, you get a big guy like Trapillo on the edge. You got a guy like Darnell Wright, who's physical, is going to get up under your pads, who's going to hit you. And you got an interior line with just Cooney and Dahlman and Jackson and all these different guys. We have so much potential at a position where we never had much talent. It was the biggest concern during the Justin Fields era. It was the biggest concern, God, even during the Trubisky era, we were still looking for that dominant tackle. A lot of these guys, especially after Kyle Long left, we had been searching for a long time. We kind of struck gold with Braxton Jones, but that's more of a rare thing. You're not going to find a guy like Braxton Jones in the fifth round. You can get an easy contract with. You can just kind of almost abuse that fifth round contract. But coming up here soon, we're going to be having Taylor Dahl on. We're going to be asking her some of the same questions that we had pitched to Mr. Gabriel, a little bit more streamlined here. She's more a fan, but she's a host on the radio. She's a content creator as well, which is fun. But, ladies and gentlemen, this has been such a fun podcast. I'm so stoked. Hosting these podcasts alone is never easy, but dude, man, I can just talk bears with myself all day. But I do really like Trapillo, but I feel like Luther Burden is just gonna, he's gonna knock a lot of people's socks off. And I think that he could easily take that number two role. Like Dunze could get demoted. I could see a Dunze getting demoted. That's something where, some people are just like, oh, it's not gonna do it, it's not gonna do it. No, it could happen. Anything could happen. There's no depth chart right now. So keep your eyes peeled. Lots can happen. Things can change. Many things can change. I love the way that Ben Johnson has been just building this roster, though. He is making sure that everybody builds their confidence naturally. It's not you're coming into this with this artificial confidence of, oh, I'm a starter. Oh, I'm this. No, you're going to earn it. And I love that. Even when some guys, probably Caleb knows, oh, I'm not going to lose my spot to Tyson Bagent or Case Keenum. But it adds an element of kind of fire under the butts of the players who maybe weren't playing to the standard. And I think that that is very good. And I think that giving Trapillo the left tackle one reps, maybe even putting Burden in at the two, seeing, hey, does he thrive in this role? Getting coached up by Antoine Randall, one of the best wide receiver coaches you could have possibly asked for to get for this team. I think that, frankly, this coaching staff and the way that everything has been going, and just Ben Johnson's demeanor when he takes the stage and it's just like confidence, it radiates, like it's infectious to the room. You saw with Eberflus, like he almost was like reserved and hid away and like didn't really know how to answer some questions sometimes. Johnson has an answer. He's got five different answers. He's got a rebuttal. He knows what he's doing. He has like he radiates football. He radiates that alpha confidence that you want in a smart leader, kind of a Kyle Shanahan type of guy where he doesn't have to be this rah-rah guy like Dan Campbell is, where he's gonna bite your kneecaps off, or he's gonna, take your head off. No, he is confident because he knows. He knows what he's doing. He knows the game. He knows the ins and outs, and he knows how to take advantage of it. And I think that that is one of the most important things to have in a coach. But now, ladies and gentlemen, Taylor Dahl has joined the waiting room, so we're going to let her in. Hello, how are we doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing great. Well, welcome to the Bear Down Breakdown podcast. This is episode 5, coming off of recently our award-winning show. We had won Content Creator of the Year, but just a special thanks to people like you, Greg, Gabriel, all the guests that we have had on. It's genuinely such an honor to be able to have people from the community on our show. But without further ado, would you like to introduce yourself to our fans here?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thanks for having me on. I know we've been trying this for a little bit and there's been a lot going on, but super excited. My name's Taylor Dahl. I host a all-girls sports talk show or all-women sports talk show in Jacksonville for the Jaguars. That's kind of like my first thing that I ever got into. It's on a radio station there called 1010XL. But I also host a podcast called Making Monsters on pretty much Bears roster construction, how they build everything, getting to know the players, X's and O's off the field. That's on Second City Gridiron. So live in two different worlds, but I was born a Bears fan, so I do the Bears side for a little bit more of my own fun. But yeah, it's a great time.
So are you from Chicago originally?
So I'm from Northwest Indiana. I'm from the region area.
Oh, really? So were your parents from Illinois?
So my family is all from like Chicago or right outside Chicago. And then they moved to Indiana, like Northwest Indiana, when my mom was like a baby. Stayed there for a long time. My mom moved to Florida, had me in Florida. Then we moved back up to Chicago for a little while, then came back to Florida. So a lot of back and forth between the two. But yeah, for the most part, my mom's whole side is from Chicago.
You guys were going from cold to warm to cold to warm. That had to have been crazy. You're going from winter clothes to summer clothes. Man, you probably have a pretty diverse wardrobe. Like, because I went from here to Arizona to here back into Chicago. Like, oh man, I get it. Like, it's a lot. But we got a few questions here. My co-host, I got to give him another shout out. He got off of work at midnight and was up until 3 a.m. making these questions. So he has been awesome. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it today. But Mr. Gustavo, if you see this, big props to you, but we're going to go ahead with the questions here. So with Ben Johnson now at the helm, focusing on refining Williams' mechanics and leadership skills, what impact do you anticipate this coaching staff will have on Williams' development in his second year?
I think it'll be huge. I think one of the things that we learned last year was how impactful coaching can be, or non-impactful coaching can be. And that goes to every level, especially with these young quarterbacks. And I think one thing that you can directly correlate in the NFL is the guys that succeed pretty quickly in the NFL, they're in a stable environment, and they're in a stable environment because of the coaching staff and the coaching scheme, and not having to switch coaches every 2-3 years or every year. And so I do think that is a huge thing. But I also just think that the experience Ben Johnson has in this league now, and guys like, and I'm not saying Jared Goff previous to Detroit was terrible, because I fight with people all the time. I think Jared Goff was a good quarterback, but what I had heard from his time when he was still with the Rams was that Sean McVay never really let him fully unleash, and whether that was a lack of trust, whether that he didn't feel Jared Goff was ready. I'm not sure the case of that, but what I've heard at the time when he got to Detroit was he was very behind when it came to a lot of the pre-snap stuff, reading the defenses, kind of the unscripted stuff. He wasn't really there yet. And because Sean McVay was in his ear the whole entire game saying, throw it here, do this, watch out for this, look for this person's blitzing. And so when he came to Detroit, he didn't have any of that. So Ben Johnson had this quarterback who, yes, he knew he could throw the ball, and he knew he could kind of do certain things in the offense, but he had to teach him all of those little intricate things, which I think is a big part of why Jared Goff's been able to succeed lately. And I totally think that is what we're going to see from Caleb Williams. Caleb can do certain things, and the deep ball was an issue last year, and people can point to that in many aspects. But if you watched Caleb in college, he has an arm. He can launch it down the field. That was one of the things you were most comfortable with him coming out of college. To be honest with you, the biggest hits on him was, is he going going to hold the ball too long? That's also something Ben Johnson's going to kind of have to beat out of his head. But I do think another part was he wasn't good at those intermediate, mid-range, that type of stuff on the field. And last year we saw that from him because he kind of had to. There wasn't really many other options for him offensively the way that Shane Waldron was doing things. So I think Ben Johnson's going to focus so much on all of those little things that maybe Caleb hasn't been coached yet at this level. And all of those will open up all of the things that we know he can already do because of his natural talent.
Yeah, and like I'm constantly talking with people about this, and it's one of the reasons why I feel Justin Fields failed. It's that you didn't play to his college strengths. There's a reason why he got drafted so high, and it's because of his arm. Like you saw the Chris Olave throw, you saw everything that he had, but then you're making him into a running back. It's something where like I never understood why coaches will draft these players so high and then be like, okay, now we're going to make you do something totally different. It just doesn't make sense to me. Like if I was a coach, you're going to want to play to these guys' strengths. And I think that Ben Johnson understands that. Out of all the coaches that I've seen, like he's played Goff more like how he played in college. And that's why he's been successful. And, you know, it's crazy. Like, I don't know why more coaches don't see that. But speaking of recently drafted players, Ozzy Trapillo, he has been taking the left tackle 1 reps. Now, what do you think are the odds of him starting in week 1? You got Amagaji, you got Braxton Jones coming off of an injury contract year. Maybe they could be like, hey, we don't want to pay Braxton. We're just going to put on another rookie. How do you feel about that?
So that's one thing about a new regime coming in is they aren't tied to the former players. So you do a lot of times see the coaches come in and maybe analyze them a little harder than maybe what the former regimes were or what even we do, because we've kind of seen the ups and downs of Braxton. And unfortunately, Braxton had dealt with injuries this last year. His first year, he played every single snap and didn't miss anything, but then had some injury issues. So that's something obviously you want players to be able to be on the field. And that's been a large issue of the Bears. When you go through and the last couple of years, they've had 13 different formations on the line. Some of that is because people didn't play well. A lot of that is because they couldn't stay healthy. And so you do want guys that you can feel like will be out there. But when it comes to the Ozzy pick, I'm a fan of it. I wasn't super familiar with Ozzy Trapillo before they drafted him, but I work with a guy named Tom McManus who went to Boston College. He played in the NFL for a while. He works with me down here in Jacksonville, played with his dad. Obviously Ozzy's dad, Steve, played at Boston College, also played with the Saints with Tom McManus. So he's very familiar. And the first thing I texted him, and I was like, how do you feel about Ozzy Trapillo? Bears just drafted him. And he said, he's a Bear. And like, he's the epitome of a Bear is what he said. And I love that because I think that people, especially guys Tommy's age, who grew up watching the 80s, early 90s Bears, have a very different mindset. And to them, that's that fierceness. That's that extra level of competitiveness. The guys that will like knock you on your butt and not care. And that's the type of player you're getting from Ozzy. I just did my podcast for Making Monsters on him recently, talked to someone who covered him at Boston College, and he had all good things to say, from the personality to the leadership to just kind of some of the things, the impact he was on that offensive line in general and how he developed through the few years. He kind of got thrown out there as a freshman, and they were like, all right, it's your turn, go play. And it was a little bit of a rough season for the team as a whole. And then the next year came out and had his probably best career college season and played really well. My one thing keeps coming back to, though, because I asked the guy specifically, do you think he can play left tackle? He played right tackle the majority of college. He played left tackle that first year. The year he didn't look so hot. Played right tackle the rest of his college career. And then, we heard him talk to the press saying he's still would take snaps at left tackle because he wanted to be versatile, and everybody was in his ear saying your best shot at the NFL is to be versatile. So he did that. Practice is different than in game. So my concern comes from his whole time he plays better, his whole career. Your best play has been at right tackle. It scares me a little bit to put a rookie who's never really, at least in 3 years, played left tackle over there. I would kind of rather see them switch Darnell Wright over to the left tackle and let Ozzy play right. I feel like I'd be more comfortable with that. I know when we drafted Darnell Wright, that was some of the conversation even at that point was because, and I know he was also a right tackle, but he did also play a decent amount of left tackle in college. So I feel like I'd be more comfortable with somebody who has experience now in the NFL and that we've seen be able to kind of develop and get better. And then now what I feel like has an improvement in coaches, move over to the left side and let Ozzy play his natural position at right tackle, especially as a rookie. That's up to the coaches. Obviously, they're going to be able to see more of what he's capable of. And if they trust him to play left, I'll trust that, because one thing we know about Ben Johnson is the importance of the offensive line. So he's going to put the best 5 out there. And I think that I wouldn't be shocked if that looked like Darnell on the left, and Ozzie on the right.
It's also really interesting. There's a big Boston College connection there because Ben Johnson worked at Boston College. So it's like it's this
Yeah.
big like circle of okay, is everybody getting hired out of Boston College? Like, do I need to go to Boston College to go to the Bears? It's like, oh, my gosh,
Yeah.
my sister's trying to go to Boston College too, so maybe I'll have her put me on.
It's
But
funny because they definitely have these like funny connections this offseason. The Boston College one is one. The New
yeah,
Orleans Saints is another one. The Saints, obviously, Dennis Allen being former coach, defensive coordinator. Declan Doyle was with the
hmm
Saints for a while. One of the things, and I did my podcast with somebody to talk about Declan Doyle and Dennis Allen and kind of like their ways of what to kind of expect from them at this next level and what a Dennis Allen defense looks like. From what I heard, also Dennis Allen, when he was the head coach of the Saints, wanted Jaquan Brisker so badly. He wanted the Saints to draft Brisker, and the Bears drafted Brisker one pick before the Saints picked, and the Saints ended up going Alontae Taylor, and the Bears got Brisker. So now Dennis Allen is getting this guy that he wanted to draft 3 years ago. So it's really funny. There's a lot of ties in the NFL, but it's cool how that works.
yeah, the NFL is a flat circle and it's always going around.
Yeah.
But record predictions, we have the second hardest schedule in the league. Do you think we fare well with fresh head coach Ben Johnson, or do you think maybe we have a little bit of woes?
Yeah, it's honestly really hard to predict this because you go back to even last year, and I know you guys probably talked about this on repeat, how many games the Bears probably should have won, how many games just from a missed timeout, a blocked field goal, a wonky Hail Mary. That right there's 3 wins. You're talking about the Bears having 8 wins with not even anything that the players did. Like that's Eberflus not calling a timeout. That's a kick being blocked because Cairo just got it a little low. And then that's obviously the Hail Mary that's on Tyreek. But those 3 plays, one single play changes that into an 8-win season on a team that was figuring out a lot of stuff, that was on multiple offensive coordinators at that time, a head coach that was about to be fired, a rookie season, and a quarterback. There were some injuries happening, during the middle of the season. You were missing a bunch of guys in the secondary, especially. So it's hard to go back to last year and think that if Caleb Williams really does start to develop and take this jump under Ben Johnson, and now you have that kind of comfortableness with DJ Moore already and with Roma Dunze. I mean, there were moments last year with Caleb and Rome where I was like, this is going to be really fun to watch for a long time if this connection builds the way it does. And then now you add Luther Burden and Colston Loveland, more weapons, and you fix the offensive line. This offensive line potentially is going from 22nd, 23rd to could be a top 10 offensive line. And that right there gets you 3 wins, in my opinion. So it's really hard for me not to have confidence that they can win 10-11, but in the NFC North, is 10-11 enough is, I think, the bigger question.
Now, speaking of the Bears' improved roster, Pro Football Focus has the Bears ranked at number 17 for the upcoming season. Now, do you agree with this assessment, or do you see them as potential overachievers or maybe underachievers?
Yeah, so I feel like right now 17 may feel like the right spot to put them. Mainly just because, like I said, I mean, you're coming off, you won 5 games last year. You started 4-2 and lost 10 straight games and then beat the Packers without Jordan Love. So I think that if you're basing it off some of the things that happened in that sense, then you're talking about a bottom tier league. But what they're accounting for is you have a new head coach, you have a year 2 quarterback who may be a little bit more comfortable, you improve the offensive line, you drafted kind of some of the biggest needs when it comes to weapons, when it comes to probably my favorite pick out of this outside. Actually, probably my favorite pick was Shamar Turner. So I do think that you had, here's our 5 biggest things we need to address this offseason, and you hit all of them. And so when that happens, as long as everything kind of gets executed properly and people stay healthy, then you're improving. So if you're saying you're talking about a team who was very bad last year and could only win 5 wins, and then you're up to 17, I feel like it seems like it's in the right spot. But I could also see in week 2, 3, people starting to realize, oh, okay, like this Ben Johnson effect is real. And if that's the case, then they'll start sliding up pretty quickly.
Well, that's all we have for you. So we seriously appreciate you and your time. This has been awesome having you on. Just everybody from the Bears community is so awesome. So having you on, having Greg Gabriel on, this has just been an awesome podcast. So I'm so appreciative to have had you on. And thanks. This has been
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. It was fun.
Yeah. Happy Friday.
All right. You too.
All right. See ya. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that has been Taylor Dahl. Let's see. All right, well, that's the pod, ladies and gentlemen. This has been a great show so far. Like, I mean, I don't even know what to say. Everybody has been so supportive of the show, just so willing to come on, and we're so happy to have been able to have all these guests on. And yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and remove her there. Don't report. Ladies and gentlemen, that has been the Bear Down Breakdown episode 5. Special thank you to Greg, Gabriel, Taylor Dahl for coming on. This has been so cool. We have just some of the coolest media members on this show. So we're so blessed to have been able to have these people on. But without further ado, I am Ronan Clark, your host. Gustavo Arriaga is probably going to be on the next podcast. But until then, bear down.